Hello. So I'm doing yet another video because I want to get through this book, which is Art and Fear by David Bayles, and we are on page 96 out of 125, so basically nearly done. And this section is called The Conceptual Worlds, and we've got a quote from Thomas Kuhn, which is, "The answers you get depend on the questions you ask." Some food for thought. And we begin. Writer Henry James once proposed 3 questions you could productively put to an artist's work. The first 2 were disarmingly straightforward. What was the artist trying to achieve? Did he or she succeed? And the third's a zinger. Was it worth doing? Those first 2 questions alone are worth the price of admission. They address art at a level that can be tested directly against real-world values and experience. They commit you to accepting the perspective of the maker into your own understanding of the work. In short, they ask you to respond to the work itself, without first pushing it through some aesthetic filter labeled behaviorism, feminism, postmodernism, or whateverism. Oh, whateverism, I like that one. Hashtag everywhere, okay. But it's that third question, was it worth doing, that truly opens up the universe. What is worth doing? Are some artistic problems inherently more interesting than others? More relevant? More meaningful? More difficult? More provocative? Every contemporary artist dances with such questions as these. That part was left on a cliffhanger. I suppose you've got to answer those questions. Let's go over them one more time. First question. What was the artist trying to achieve? Second, did he or she succeed? I would like to rephrase that. Did that artist succeed? So I don't step on any toes so that I don't hurt anyone's feelings, okay? And the third, was it worth doing? And from there you can expand with other questions. Anyway, ideas and technique. Provocative art challenges not only the viewer but also its maker. Art that falls short often does so not because the artist failed to meet the challenge, but because there was never a challenge there in the first place. Think of it like Olympic diving. You don't win high points for making even the perfect swan dive off the low board. There's little reward in an easy perfection quickly reached by many. That's true. To resist models of perfection in art may seem strange, given their acceptance in so many other facets. There's a footnote there, and okay. Sorry for wasting that a few seconds of your time. To resist models of perfection in art may seem strange, given their acceptance in so many other facets of living. Swan dives, notwithstanding the Olympic Games themselves, are founded on the concept of great achievement within strict framework. Honors in the 100-meter dash, after all, go not to the runner who displays some intriguing personal skip, but to the one who reaches the set goal first. The burden for the artist, as Anne Truitt observes in her daybook, is that the lawyer and the doctor practice their callings. The plumber and the carpenter know what they will be called upon to do. They do not have to spin the work out of themselves, discover its laws, and then present themselves turned inside out to a public gaze. Clearly, that is not an easy space to put yourself in, and indeed many artists don't. Artists who need ongoing assurance that they're on the right track routinely seek out challenges that offer the clear goals and measurable feedback, which is to say, technical challenges. The underlying problem with this is not that the pursuit of technical excellence is wrong, exactly, but simply that making it in the primary goal puts the cart before the horse. We do not long remember those artists who followed the rules more diligently than anyone else. We remember those who made the art from which the rules inevitably follow. More insidiously, technical standards have a way of taking on all the trappings of aesthetic standards. There is a widespread agreement, for instance, that it's a genuine challenge to impart rich blacks and subtle high values to a photographic print. At some point, however, this seemingly neutral observation gave rise, especially among the West Coast landscape photographers, to the moral imperative that photographs should display such tonal perfection. As this genre established itself, criteria for judging a print increasingly concentrated on the virtuoso technical performance needed to produce the desired tones. Subtlety of tone became often quite literally the primary content. An equivalent fate befell much 20th century symphonic music, which was seduced by arcane harmonic theory to the degree that its critical audience drifted progressively to other idioms like jazz that remained grounded in the rhythms of the real world. To the viewer who has little emotional investment in how the work gets done. Interesting Freudian slip there. I almost said word, and obviously it says work there, but that's interesting. Let's supplement it. Let's see what happens. To the viewer who has little emotional investment in how the word gets done. Ooh. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to confuse, although I find that to be quite interesting, because the word, in terms of Christianity, for example, the word is the logos, and yeah, it's not that you don't know that, but and the word is alive, and it's all linked to one another. So I find that interesting, because many people are sort of emotionally uninvested in actually doing the word, which is taking the word and applying it in your life and embodying it, if I could say it like that. And when people don't do that, then they sometimes miss out on the relational aspect of walking with God, of experiencing His grace, of experiencing the anointing and the power of the Holy Spirit, and that connectivity and that happens in between, and the understanding and knowledge and wisdom that can come from that, and also certain things in life that you can experience here now while you're alive, and in this experience. Anyway, so I lost my place here. Swan dives, okay, that's hectic. Right, okay. I seriously lost my place. Oh gosh. Blah 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 blah. Ah, found it. To the viewer who has little emotional investment in how the work gets done, art made You're full of mistakes today, please forgive me. To display technical virtuosity is often beautiful, striking, elegant, and vacant. To the artist who has an emotional investment in everything, it's more a question of which direction to reach. Compared to other challenges, the ultimate shortcoming of technical problems is not that they are hard, but that they are easy. Artists naturally would be the last to admit that, if only because heroic accounts of grueling hours spent building the mold or casting the hot metal remain de rigueur of artist conversation. But while mastering technique is difficult and time-consuming, it's still inherently easier to reach than an actual blah 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 blah. I'm trying not to judge myself right now too harshly. But while mastering technique is difficult and time-consuming, it's still inherently easier to reach an already defined goal, a right answer, than to give form to a new idea. It's easier to paint in the angel's feet to another master's work than to discover where the angels live within yourself. If technique were the core issue in art, our nominee for the famous Artist Wax Museum would be the lifer at San Quentin who spent 20 years constructing a perfect replica of the Eiffel Tower from toothpicks. And while yes, it's in its own way, it was pretty impressive, but that's not the way it works. Simply put, art that deals with ideas is more interesting than art that deals with technique. And we move on. Thank you for bearing with me until this point. Craft. Yes, there is a difference between art and craft. It's just that both terms are so overgrown with fuzzy definitions that drawing a clear distinction between them is close to impossible. We'll settle here for a fuzzy distinction. Think of craft, and you think of furniture shaped by Sam Malouf, of handmade clothing flaunted at Renaissance fairs, of everything made before the Industrial Revolution. Think of art, and you think of War and Peace, a Beethoven concerto, the Mona Lisa. Both disciplines obviously yield good things, valuable things, sometimes tangible, useful things, and at first pass the distinction between them seems perfectly clear. But is the Mona Lisa really art? Well then, what about an undetectably perfect copy of the Mona Lisa? That comparison, however sneaky, points up the fact that it's surprisingly difficult, maybe even impossible, to view any single work in isolation and rule definitively, this is art, or this is craft. Striking that difference means comparing successive pieces made by the same person. In essence, art lies embedded in the conceptual leap between pieces, not in pieces themselves. Let me repeat that, that is lekker. In essence, art lies embedded in the conceptual leap between pieces, not in the pieces themselves. In essence, art lies embedded in the conceptual leap between pieces, not in the pieces themselves. Oh, I'm going to write that down just now. It actually fits in with something else that I was working on. Ooh, that's a good. I like that. I like the way it's put. It's different, original. Well, to me. And simply put, there's a greater conceptual jump from one work of art to the next than from one work of craft to the next. The net result is that art is less polished but more innovative than craft. Demonstrably, works of consummate craftsmanship are small compared to the differences between the 5 Beethoven piano concerti you might perform on those instruments. A work of art is typically made to fit a specific template, sometimes a painstakingly difficult template requiring years of hands-on apprenticeship to master. It's staggering to realize that nearly all truly great violins ever produced were made in the course of a few years by the few artisans living within a few blocks of each other. I feel like that's symbolic. All this in a remote Italian village 3 centuries ago. The accomplishments of the Antonio Stradivari, I'm sorry if I pronounce that wrong, and his fellow craftsmen point up one real difference between art and craft. With craft, perfection is possible. In that sense, the Western definition of craft closely matches the Eastern definition of craft. Eastern definition of art. Oh gosh, that's a huge error. Let me correct it. In the sense, the Western definition of art closely matches the Eastern definition of art. I might not even post this one because I made so many mistakes, and I don't like editing my videos because I said so. In Eastern cultures, art that faithfully carries forward the tradition of an elder master is honored. In the West, it is put down as derivative. Yet curiously, the progression of most artists' work over time is a progression from art toward craft. In the same manner that imagination gives way to execution as any single work builds towards completion, an artist's major discoveries usually come early on, and a lifetime is then allotted to fill out and refine those discoveries. As the Zen proverb suggests, for the beginner, there are many paths. For the advanced, few. At any point along the path, your job as an artist is to push craft to its limits, without being trapped by it. The trap is perfection. Unless your work continually generates new and unresolved issues, there is no reason for your next work to be any different from the last. The difference between art and craft lies not in the tools you hold in your hands, but in the mental set that guides them. For the artisan, craft is an end in itself. For you, the artist, craft is the vehicle for expressing your vision. Craft is the visible edge of art. I'm going to end there. Even though the next chapter is intriguing to me. But I made so many mistakes in this one. Sorry. Okay. Bye.